The Galactic Council chamber stretched vast and cold, a monument to thousands of years of alien civilization. Hundreds of species filled the tiered seats, their forms ranging from the insectoid to the gaseous. At the center floor stood the human delegation, small and seemingly insignificant among giants. Ambassador Minho Kim adjusted his simple black suit and glanced at the datapad in his hands. 3 years. 3 long years of meetings, presentations, and endless bureaucracy. His jaw tightened as he remembered the promises made when humanity first joined this galactic community. Fair treatment, equal rights, justice under common law. All lies. Beside him, Taiyang Park cleared his throat and activated the holographic display. Images filled the air above them. Burned colonies. Missing ships. Lists of names, human names, of people who would never come home. Honored Council, Taiyang began, his voice steady despite the anger burning in his chest. We present evidence of 47 violations of our territorial space by Vrelian vessels. We have documented the theft of resources from our mining operations. We have proof of raids on civilian transports. The chamber filled with the clicking, humming, and whistling that passed for conversation among the various species. Few seem to be listening, Taiyang continued. Most seriously, we have confirmation that 234 human civilians have been taken from our outer colonies. We believe they are being held by Vrelian raiders. We demand their immediate return and sanctions against the Vrelian Empire. From the elevated seat reserved for senior members, Kalmuth rose. The Vrelian was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and scales that shimmered with an oily purple sheen. His mouth, filled with rows of needle teeth, stretched into what humans had learned to recognize as a smile. The Council has reviewed these complaints before, Kalmuth said, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the chamber. Young species often have difficulty adapting to galactic realities. Perhaps some of your people simply wandered into dangerous space. Perhaps your equipment malfunctioned. Perhaps your colonists decided to seek opportunities elsewhere. Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. Not cruel laughter exactly, but dismissive. The kind of laughter adults make when a child complains about something they don't understand. Minho felt his hands curl into fists. At the edge of the delegation, Haijin Choi stood perfectly still in her military dress uniform. She wore no weapons in the council chamber, as was the law, but her presence alone spoke of violence barely restrained. Her dark eyes tracked every council member who laughed. Taiyang's face flushed red. We have provided sensor logs, DNA evidence, testimony from survivors. What more do you require? Another council member spoke, this one from the Corthan Collective. Its form was vaguely humanoid but covered in thick gray fur. The problem, human, is that your evidence could be interpreted many ways. The Vrelian Empire has been a member of this council for 6,000 years. They have earned trust. You have been here for barely 3. Trust must be earned by all, Taiyang shot back. Or does the council have different standards for different species? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. One did not question the council's fairness. Not openly, Kalmuth's smile widened. You speak of earning trust, yet you come before us with accusations and demands. This is not how a junior species should behave. Perhaps if you spent less time complaining and more time learning your place in the galactic order, these misunderstandings would not occur. The chamber fell silent. Even those species sympathetic to humanity seemed shocked by the directness of the insult. Minho looked at Taiyang. They had prepared for this possibility. They had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but they had prepared. Taiyang gave a small nod. Minho stepped forward. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet. So quiet that the chamber systems had to amplify it for all to hear. Our place? Minho repeated. He gathered the datapad and the holographic projector into his case. You speak of our place as if we are children to be taught. We came to this council as equals seeking justice. We have been patient. We have followed every protocol. We have done everything asked of us. He closed the case with a soft click that somehow echoed in the vast chamber. And in return, our people have been stolen. Our resources have been taken. Our sovereignty has been violated. And when we seek justice, we are mocked. Minho looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many council members as he could. Some looked away. Others stared back with curiosity or contempt. We understand now, Minho said. We understand perfectly. He turned to the human delegation. Pack everything. We're leaving. Taeyang moved immediately, gathering their materials. Hejin stepped to Minho's side, her hand hovering near where a weapon would normally be. The other 7 members of the delegation formed up in a tight group. Kalmuth laughed, a booming sound. You would abandon the council? Where will you go? What will you do? You need us, human. Your species cannot survive in this galaxy alone. You will be back within a month, begging for readmission. Minho stopped at the chamber's main door. He looked back at Kalmuth, at the council, at the hundreds of species who had taught humanity a valuable lesson today. We are done here, Minho said. Then he walked out. The delegation followed in silence. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridor outside. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in conversation. Some members seemed concerned. Most seemed amused. A few those who had studied human history, those who understood what humans did when diplomacy failed. Sat very still and very quiet. Haijin walked beside Minho as they headed toward the docking bay where their ship waited. Sir, she said quietly, they think we're bluffing. Minho's face remained expressionless. I know. They'll realize their mistake, Haijin said. Yes, Minho agreed. But by then, it will be too late. The human delegation boarded their ship and departed the council station. They did not file a formal withdrawal. They did not make threats or declarations. They simply left, and they would never return. The first sign that something was wrong came within 48 hours of the human delegation's departure, on the trading station of Kellis 9, a busy commercial hub near the galactic core. Merchant Captain Vrextel arrived at the human quarter expecting to negotiate a contract for industrial equipment. The entire section was empty. Not abandoned in haste, but methodically cleared. Every human merchant, every human ship, every human trader had simply vanished. The doors to their shops were locked. The warehouses were sealed. But there were no signs of panic, no evidence of emergency evacuation. Just emptiness. Vrextel checked with station security. The humans had filed proper departure documentation, paid all outstanding fees, and left in an orderly fashion over a 36-hour period. When asked where they were going, each human gave the same answer: home. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human researchers left academic institutions. Human medical staff departed hospitals. Human engineers working on joint projects packed their equipment and departed. Everywhere, humans were leaving alien space, that they were polite about it. They completed their contracts where possible. They said goodbye to friends and colleagues. But they left in the Galactic Council building itself. Junior analyst Byung-ho Lee stared at the data streaming across his screens. Byung-ho was Korthan, but he had spent years studying human behavior as part of his intelligence work. Something about this pattern worried him deeply. They're not fleeing, he muttered to himself. They're consolidating. His supervisor, an elderly Korthan named Reth, glanced over. What was that? Byung-ho pulled up a star map showing human movements. Look at this. Every human ship that's left alien space in the past 2 days has filed a flight plan. They're all heading back toward human-controlled sectors. So? Reth asked. They're going home. Good riddance, I say. Saved us the trouble of dealing with their complaints. But they're not just going home randomly, Byung-ho insisted. Look at the timing. Look at the coordination. This was planned. Probably planned for months. Reth snorted. You're seeing patterns where there are none. The humans are young. They got their feelings hurt and they're running home to cry about it. Byung-ho said nothing, but he didn't stop analyzing the data. The more he looked, the more certain he became. This wasn't a retreat. This was preparation. In the Solarian embassy, Ambassador Jiwan Nam sat in her office and read the message for the third time. The Solarians were one of the few species that had consistently treated humans with respect. They were an old race, peaceful but not weak. Jiwan had formed genuine friendships with several human diplomats during her time on the council. She had sent a personal message to Taiyang Park through encrypted channels. The response had been brief. Ambassador Nam, we value your friendship. We hope you understand that this is not about you or your people. We have nothing more to discuss with the council. Please do not contact us again. With respect, Taiyang Park. Jiwan felt a chill run through her. She had seen wars start before. She had watched species destroy each other over pride and misunderstanding. This felt different. This felt calculated. She requested an emergency meeting with the council leadership, but her request was denied. The council was too busy celebrating the departure of the troublesome humans. Meanwhile, the Vrelian Empire saw opportunity. War Marshal Drektar was a veteran of a dozen conflicts. He had watched the humans leave with satisfaction. Weak species always collapsed when challenged. Their colonies are exposed, he told his subordinates. Their trading posts are abandoned. This is our chance to claim what should have been ours from the beginning. He dispatched 3 raiding fleets to former human trading stations along the border. These were small facilities, barely defended even when humans occupied them. Taking them would be simple. The first fleet arrived at Trading Station Amber 7. The station appeared intact. All systems running normally. Scans showed no life signs. The Vrelian ships docked and boarding parties entered. They found the station in perfect condition. Shelves stocked with goods. Computers running. Even food in the cafeteria still fresh. But no people. Not a single human remained. The fleet commander ordered his ships to begin loading the valuable equipment and supplies. It would take several hours, but the prize was worth it. 2 hours later, all contact with the fleet was lost. The second fleet never reported reaching its destination. The third fleet sent one final transmission. Something's out here. Sensors can't. It's moving too fast. Then silence. Drektar stared at the communications display in disbelief. 3 fleets, gone, no debris fields located, no distress beacons, no wreckage, just nothing. He dispatched a larger force, a full battle group of 20 warships. Surely, whatever had destroyed the raiding fleets couldn't stand against. A proper military formation, the battle group, found the wreckage of the third fleet floating. In space near Trading Station, Delta 12, the Vrelian ships had been cut apart with precision. Hull breaches showed evidence of weapons fire, but not from any weapon system Drektar recognized. The cuts were too clean, too precise. The battle group's commander was preparing his report when his sensors officer shouted a warning. Multiple contacts appeared on scopes, moving at speeds that should have been impossible. The contacts were small, fast, and they were everywhere. The engagement lasted 4 minutes. When reinforcements arrived 6 hours later, they found 17 destroyed Vrelian warships. 3 had survived, their engines disabled but crew alive. The survivors told a story that made no sense. Ships appearing from nowhere, weapons firing from impossible ranges, speed and maneuverability that violated known physics, and a message, broadcasting clear on all frequencies in perfect Vrelian language. You were warned. You were given time. You chose poorly. The news reached the Galactic Council 3 days after the humans had walked out. Emergency sessions were called. The Vrelians demanded action, demanded support, demanded that the Council do something about human aggression. Ambassador Jiwan Nam stood before the Council and spoke quietly but firmly. For 3 years, the Vrelians raided human space. For 3 years, the humans came to us seeking justice. For 3 years, we did nothing. What did you expect would happen? Kolmuth rose from his seat, his voice filled with rage. They have attacked our ships. They have violated every law of civilized warfare. This cannot stand. Can it not? Jiwan asked. Where were these concerns when human civilians disappeared? Where was this outrage when human colonies burned? The council chamber descended into chaos. Arguments broke out between species. Some sided with the Vrelians. Others remained silent. A few, very few, suggested that perhaps they should try to communicate with humanity again. In his office, Young-Ho Lee worked through the night. He pulled every piece of intelligence the council had on human technology, human military capacity, human industrial capability. What he found terrified him. The humans had been hiding their true strength all along. The Vrelian Empire had not survived for 6,000 years by accepting defeat easily. War Marshal Drektar convinced the Imperial Council to commit more forces. If the humans wanted war, they would have it. 12 full battle fleets deployed along the human border. Each fleet contained over 100 warships, supported by carriers, supply vessels, and mobile command stations. It was the largest military operation the Vrelians had launched in 3 centuries. The plan was simple: push into human space, locate their military installations, and destroy them before humanity could organize a proper defense. Speed and overwhelming force would carry the day. The fleets crossed into human territory and found nothing. No defensive fleets. No warning shots. No patrol vessels. Just empty space and silent colonies. Captain Do Yun Kong of the Korthan Defense Fleet watched from a distance. The Korthans had not joined the Vrelian offensive, but they maintained observation posts along neutral zones. Do Yun had been ordered to monitor the situation and report. What he saw made no sense. The human colonies are still there, his sensor officer reported. I'm reading power signatures, life signs, normal activity. But there are no defensive positions. No orbital weapons platforms, nothing. Do Yun studied the data carefully. He had fought against humans in war games during the early days of their council membership. They had been clever opponents, unconventional in their tactics. This felt wrong. They're not defending because they don't need to defend, he said quietly. Sir? His executive officer asked. They're hunting. Even as he spoke, the first Vrelian fleet stopped transmitting, the flagship. A massive dreadnought called Pride of Vrel had been in the middle of a routine report when communications simply ended. No distress call. No warning. Just silence. Drektar tried to raise them for 6 hours. When he finally dispatched a reconnaissance force, they found a debris field. The Pride of Vrel had been torn apart. Not by explosives or missiles, but by what looked like focused energy weapons of incredible power. The massive ship's armor, rated to withstand planetary bombardment, had been cut through like paper. The reconnaissance ships began scanning for the attacking force. Their sensors picked up nothing. No ships. No energy signatures, nothing. Then one of the reconnaissance ships vanished from sensors, the others scattered, but it made no difference. One by one they disappeared. The last ship managed to send a final transmission. They're everywhere. We can't see them until it's too late. They're too fast. Do Yun watched from his position in neutral space as the massacre continued. The Vrelian fleets were being destroyed piecemeal. Ships would be there one moment and gone the next. Occasionally, his long-range sensors would catch a glimpse of something moving at impossible speeds, but by the time his systems locked on, it was gone. Are you recording all of this? Do Yun asked his crew. Yes, sir. Every second. The council needs to see this. They need to understand what's happening. Over the next 2 weeks, 8 of the 12 Vrelian fleets were destroyed or crippled. The survivors retreated in disorder, their commanders unable to explain what had happened. The few sensor logs that survived showed impossible things. Ships moving at relativistic speeds in normal space. Weapons firing from distances of hundreds of thousands of kilometers with perfect accuracy. Shields that seemed to absorb any attack. One traumatized Vrelian captain described it as fighting ghosts. You never see them coming. Your sensors show nothing, then your ships start dying. By the time you detect them, it's already over. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Do Yun was called to present his observations. The chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species. All wanting to understand what had happened, Doyun activated the holographic display and showed them. The images were grainy at extreme range, but clear enough. Vrelian warships exploding, fleets scattering, and occasionally brief glimpses of human ships. They were unlike anything in the Council database. Sleek, dark hulls that seemed to absorb sensor beams. Configurations that made no sense according to known engineering principles. And the speed. The terrible, impossible speed. This footage shows a human vessel crossing 12 light minutes in under 3 minutes, Doyun explained. That's impossible with any technology we know. Could the data be corrupted? Someone asked. We verified it multiple times. This is accurate. Kolmuth stood, his forearms trembling with rage. This is an act of war. The Council must respond. We must what? Ambassador Jiwan Nam interrupted. Your empire attacked first? You sent fleets into human space. This is the consequence. They destroyed military vessels. Kolmuth roared. Yes, Jiwan agreed coldly. Military vessels. Not civilians. Not colonies. Only military targets. The humans are showing remarkable restraint, all things considered. Restraint? Kolmuth looked at her with disbelief. They've killed thousands of Vrelian soldiers. And how many humans did you kill? Jiwan asked quietly. How many humans disappeared from their colonies? Did you show restraint then? The council chamber fell silent. The truth was uncomfortable. The Vrelians had been raiding human space for years. Everyone had known. Everyone had looked the other way. In a small office deep in the Council Intelligence Division, Analyst Sumino finished her report. Sumin was young for her position, but she had a gift for finding patterns in data. What she had found in the last 3 weeks terrified her. She requested a meeting with the council leadership. To her surprise, they granted it immediately. Sumin stood before the assembled leaders and activated her presentation. I've been analyzing human technology since they first joined the council. I've reviewed every patent filing, every technical paper, every piece of equipment they've traded. I believe I've found something important. She pulled up a graph. This shows the technological sophistication of human devices over time. Notice anything? One of the counselors, a crystalline being named Shard, studied it carefully. It's remarkably consistent. Almost too consistent. Exactly, Sumin said. Human technology improves steadily but slowly. They always seemed about 50 years behind council standards. But here's the thing, I started comparing different types of technology. Their consumer goods, their medical equipment, their industrial tools, all showing the same rate of improvement. She pulled up another graph. This is statistically impossible. In any developing civilization, some fields advance faster than others, unless they were deliberately holding back, Shard finished. Sumin nodded. I believe humans have been showing us only what they wanted us to see. Their real technology, their military technology, is far more advanced. She pulled up a final image. It was a human ship, captured by long-range sensors during a trade mission 5 years ago. Then she overlaid an image of the vessels attacking the Vrelians. The designs were completely different. They've been building 2 separate technology bases, Sumin explained. One for interaction with the council. One for themselves. And we never noticed. The council leaders looked at each other. The implications were staggering. Humanity had played them. For years, humans had pretended to be weak, had accepted insults and violations, had presented themselves as a young species still learning, all while building a military that could apparently destroy council forces at will. A message arrived during the meeting. It was broadcast on all frequencies, unencrypted, in every major galactic language. The message was simple. You created this war by refusing justice. We will end it on our terms. Admiral Gunwoo Han, Human Defense Fleet. In his command center, Drektar read the message and made a decision. If the humans wanted to hide in their territory, he would draw them out. He would strike at their heart. He began assembling a fleet for an attack on Earth itself. The council archives were ancient, containing records dating back thousands of years. Few people ever visited the deepest sections where the oldest files were stored. Minji Yoon was one of those few. Minji worked as a historical researcher, cataloging and digitizing old records. It was quiet work, the kind she preferred, but something Sumin-Oh had said during her presentation stuck in Minji's mind. If humans had been hiding their technology, maybe they had been planning this for a long time. And if they had been planning, maybe there were clues in the old records. She started with humanity's first contact with the Council 30 years ago. The official report was straightforward: a young species, technologically primitive but showing promise. They were granted observer status and invited to join the Council as junior members. But Minji noticed something strange. The report had been edited, sections had been removed. She found the digital markers showing where data had been deleted from the original file. She dug deeper. In a backup archive, one that most people didn't know existed, she found the original unedited report. What she read made her blood run cold. The original first contact team had filed a very different assessment. They had described human technology as surprisingly advanced in specific areas, and potentially threatening to Council military superiority. The report recommended careful monitoring and suggested limiting human access to certain technologies. Then she found the second document. It was a classified memo from the Council's senior leadership, written just days after first contact. The memo outlined a strategy: accept humanity into the Council but ensure they remain dependent. Restrict their access to advanced technology. Discourage their military development. Keep them weak. The memo was signed by representatives from the 5 most powerful Council species, including the Vrelians and the Korthans. Minji sat back in her chair, her hands shaking. The Council had deliberately sabotaged humanity from the beginning. They had seen humans as a threat and decided to neutralize that threat through bureaucracy and manipulation rather than open conflict. And humanity had known. They must have known. But instead of fighting, they had played along, pretending to be weak while building their real strength in secret. She copied all the files and sent them to Sumin-Oh with a simple message: you need to see this. Meanwhile, War Marshal Drektar's fleet assembled in Vrelian space. It was the largest force the Empire had gathered in living memory. 300 warships, including 7 of the Empire's most powerful dreadnoughts. The target, Earth. Drektar's plan was brutal but straightforward. Jump into the Sol system, destroy any defenders, and bombard Earth from orbit. The humans would have to reveal their forces to protect their homeworld. Once the human fleet showed itself, the Vrelian fleet would engage and destroy it. The Korthan. Observers, including Captain Do-Yun Kong, watched the fleet depart. Do-Yun sent an immediate warning to his superiors, who forwarded it to the Council. An emergency session was called. The Vrelians are about to attack the human homeworld, Ambassador Jiwon-nam said urgently. We must stop them. This will turn a border conflict into a war of extermination. Kulmuth stood tall, his confidence restored by the size of the Vrelian fleet. This is a military action against a hostile force. The Council has no authority to interfere in matters of imperial security. You're going to get millions of your people killed, Jiwon said flatly. The humans cannot stand against the full might of the Vrelian Empire, Kulmuth replied. This war will be over within days. Yuan looked around the chamber. No one was willing to support her. The other species were either allied with the Vrelians or too afraid to oppose them. She sat down, defeated. The Vrelian fleet entered human space and began moving toward the Sol system. They encountered no resistance. Long-range sensors showed no human military vessels. The way to Earth appeared open. They're not even defending. Their homeworld, Drektar's second-in-command said with disbelief. Could they have evacuated? Impossible, Drektar replied. Earth has billions of inhabitants. You cannot evacuate a planetary population in a few weeks. They're hiding, waiting for us to commit. Stay alert. The fleet reached the outer edges of the Sol system. Still no contact, no defenders, no warnings. Just silence. Then the human message arrived. It wasn't broadcast on normal frequencies. Instead, it appeared simultaneously on every single screen aboard every single Vrelian ship. Even systems that weren't connected to communications networks displayed it. The technological sophistication required to accomplish that feat was staggering. The message was a video. It showed a middle-aged human man in a simple military uniform. His hair was gray, his face weathered. Behind him, Drektar could see what looked like a command center, but the equipment was unfamiliar. "I am Admiral Gunwoo-han of the Human Defense Fleet," the man said calmly. "You have entered the Sol system with hostile intent. This is your only warning. Turn back now or be destroyed." Drektar laughed. One man threatening 300 ships? Destroy the source of that transmission. His communications officer looked up with confusion. "Sir, I can't locate it. The signal is coming from everywhere and nowhere. I don't understand how they're doing this." On the screen, Admiral Han continued speaking. "For 3 years, we asked for peace. For 3 years, we asked for justice. You refused. You mocked us. You taught us that in this galaxy might makes right. Very well. We learned the lesson." Behind Han, the view changed. It showed space, vast and empty. Then stars began appearing, except they weren't stars. They were ships. Thousands of ships. They appeared from nowhere, as if materializing out of empty space itself. Small fighters. Medium destroyers? Massive carriers? Ships of designs that made no sense, that shouldn't be able to function according to known physics. And at the center of it all, a vessel so large it dwarfed everything else. A ship that looked like a city in space, bristling with weapons and technology that Drektar couldn't begin to understand. "This is the HDFS Unity," Han said. "Flagship of the first human fleet. You are currently surrounded by 473 vessels. Our weapons are locked on every ship in your fleet. If you wish to survive, you will power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted out of human space." Drektar stared at the display. His sensors finally started picking up the human ships, but the readings made no sense. The power signatures were off the scale. The energy outputs were impossible. "This is a trick," he said. "Holograms, sensor ghosts. They're trying to scare us." His tactical officer shook his head. "Sir, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions. These ships are real. And they're charging weapons. All ships, battle formation." Drektar ordered, "Prepare to engage." The Vrelian fleet began moving into combat position. It was a textbook maneuver, practiced for centuries. 300 ships organizing into a defensive sphere, overlapping fields of fire. Mutual support. It took them 3 minutes to complete the formation. Admiral Han watched and waited. When the Vrelian fleet stopped moving, he spoke again. "I gave you a chance," he said quietly. Then he turned to someone off-screen. "All ships, fire." The space between the two fleets lit up. What happened next lasted exactly 53 seconds. The human vessels fired weapons that moved at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The Vrelian ships barely had time to register the incoming fire before it hit. Shields that could withstand nuclear weapons simply vanished. Armor that could resist planetary bombardment evaporated. The 7 dreadnoughts, pride of the Vrelian fleet, were targeted first. Beams of impossible power punched through them from bow to stern. The massive ships broke apart, their reactors going critical, their crews dying before they could even scream. The remaining ships tried to return fire, but the human vessels were too fast. They moved through space like dancers, avoiding incoming fire with ease that seemed almost casual. Drektar's flagship shuddered as something hit it. Alarms blared. His shield officer reported complete shield failure. His tactical officer reported hull breaches on 7 decks. And then it stopped. Drektar looked at his display. Of 300 ships, only 43 remained intact. Every dreadnought was destroyed. Most of the heavy cruisers were gone. The survivors were all lighter vessels, their weapons disabled but their life support intact. Admiral Han appeared on the screen again. "You have lost. Your soldiers are alive because we chose to let them live. You will return to Vrelian space, and you will tell your leaders what happened here. This war is over. If the Vrelian Empire ever enters human space again, there will be no warnings. There will be no survivors." The transmission ended. Drektar sat in his command chair and stared at the wreckage of his fleet. He had been a warrior for 40 years. He had fought in a dozen campaigns. He had won battles against impossible odds. This hadn't been a battle. It had been an execution. The news of the Battle of Seoul reached the Galactic Council within hours. The reports were fragmentary at first. Survivors babbling about impossible weapons and ships that moved like nothing in known space. Then the sensor logs arrived. Then the casualty lists. The council chamber fell silent as the numbers were read aloud. 257 Vrelian warships destroyed. Over 40,000 soldiers dead. The largest military defeat in Vrelian history, accomplished in less than 1 minute. Kolmuth stood in the center of the chamber, his 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. He looked like he had aged a century in a single day. We did not know, he said quietly. We did not understand what they were capable of. You didn't want to know, Ambassador Jiwan Nam replied. Her voice was not angry, just tired. You looked at them and saw weakness because they chose peace. You mistook patience for inability. You confused restraint with fear. She activated a holographic display. It showed the documents Minji Yoon had discovered in the archives. For those who haven't seen these yet, I suggest you read them carefully. 30 years ago, when humanity first made contact with us, the council leadership decided they were too dangerous to allow to grow strong. So we sabotaged them. We restricted their access to technology. We dismissed their complaints. We let species like the Vrelians prey on them. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some claimed the documents were fabricated. Others demanded to know who had authorized such actions. A few, very few, sat quietly and said nothing because they had known all along. And what did humanity do? Jiwan continued over the noise. They smiled. They nodded. They followed our rules. And while we congratulated ourselves on keeping them weak, they built a fleet that just destroyed 300 warships in less than a minute. The council dissolved into chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Accusations flew. Ancient alliances fractured. The carefully maintained order of the galactic community began to crack in the Vrelian Empire. The Imperial Council convened an emergency session. Drektar had returned home in disgrace, but his report could not be ignored. The humans had military capabilities far beyond anything the Empire could counter. The debate lasted 3 days. Some wanted to continue the war, to commit even more resources to defeating humanity. Others pointed out that they had already lost 60% of their military in less than 3 months. The Empire was exposed, vulnerable to attack from rivals and enemies. In the end, survival instinct won over pride. The Vrelian Empire formally requested peace negotiations. The humans agreed, but they would not negotiate through the council. Instead, they specified that talks would take place in neutral space on a station of their choosing. They would accept only one council representative as an observer, ambassador. Jiwan Nam received the invitation with mixed feelings. She was honored to be chosen, but dreaded what she would find. The meeting took place on a human space station in orbit around a small moon. Guwan arrived with a small diplomatic team. They were met by a security detail that was polite but thorough. Then they were escorted to a conference room. The room was surprisingly simple. No grand displays of power. No intimidating architecture. Just a large table and comfortable chairs. But through the window, Jiwan could see a human warship docked at the station. It was one of their new designs, sleek and dark, and it radiated barely contained power. Ambassador Minho Kim entered the room. He looked the same as the last time Jiwan had seen him, 3 months ago when he had walked out of the council chamber. But there was something different in his eyes now, a hardness that hadn't been there before. Ambassador Nam, Minho greeted her formally. Thank you for coming. Thank you for allowing me to be here, Jiwan replied. I hope I can help facilitate a peaceful resolution. Minho gestured to the chairs. Please sit. We'll begin when the Vrelian delegation arrives. They waited in uncomfortable silence. When Kolmuth entered with his delegation, he looked diminished. The arrogance was gone. Replaced by wariness and fear, the negotiations were straightforward because humanity had no interest in bargaining. Minho presented terms. The Vrelians could accept them or reject them. There would be no counteroffers. The terms were harsh but not cruel. The Vrelians would return all human prisoners, alive and unharmed. They would pay reparations for 3 years of raids and theft. They would cede a border zone that would remain demilitarized. Most importantly, they would formally acknowledge human sovereignty and commit to non-aggression. In return, humanity would not invade Vrelian space. They would not demand territory beyond the border zone. They would not pursue further punishment for past crimes. And the Council? Kolmuth asked quietly. What of our membership? That is between you and the Council, Minho replied. Humanity is withdrawing from the Council entirely. We will no longer participate in any Council activities or decisions. Yuan felt her heart sink. You're leaving completely? Minho turned to her. Ambassador Nam, you have been a good friend to humanity. You treated us with respect when others did not. Please understand that this is not about you or the Solarian people. But we cannot remain in an organization that saw us as a threat to be controlled rather than equals to be respected. But without the Council, how will you trade? How will you resolve disputes with other species? We will establish bilateral relationships with species we trust, Minho said. Like the Solarians. We are prepared to offer your people a formal alliance if you're interested. Yuan looked at him carefully. An alliance with humanity now meant access to their technology, their protection, their trade. It also meant potentially alienating the Council. It was a decision her government would have to make carefully. I will convey your offer to my government, she said. The Vrelian delegation signed the peace treaty. They had no choice. Their empire was broken, their military shattered. It would take decades to recover. As the Vrelians departed, G1 remained behind. May I speak with you privately? She asked Minho. He nodded and dismissed his staff. When they were alone, Jiwan spoke carefully. The Council will not accept this easily. They will see your departure as a threat. Some may try to force you back, either through economic pressure or military action. Let them try, Minho said. There was no anger in his voice, just certainty. We are done being patient. We are done being understanding. The Council had 3 years to see us as equals. They chose not to. Now they will deal with the consequences. And what are those consequences? Minho gestured to the window to the warship floating outside. We will defend ourselves. We will trade with those who treat us fairly. We will help those who ask for help. But we will not submit to Council authority. Not ever again. You'll start a war. The Council has thousands of member species. Then they should have thought of that before they decided to keep us weak, Minho replied. We didn't want this. We wanted peace. We wanted fairness. We were willing to work within the system. But the system was designed to keep us down. So we built a new system. He pulled up a star chart. It showed human space expanding into territories that had been claimed by the Council, but never actually settled. We're not conquering anyone. We're not invading. We're simply taking what's available and building our own civilization. Any species that wants to join us, that wants to trade with us, that wants to be part of something different, we welcome them. You're building a rival to the Council, Jiwan realized. No, Minho corrected. We're building an alternative. The Council can continue as it always has, but it no longer speaks for all of galactic civilization. There's another option now. Several weeks later, the Galactic Council held a final session addressing the human situation. Many species were angry. Some demanded sanctions. A few even suggested military action, but then reports started coming in. The Solarians had signed an alliance with humanity. So had 3 other species, all of them younger members who had felt marginalized by the Council's older powers. Human trade ships were offering better prices and more favorable terms than Council-backed corporations. Human technology, previously hidden, was being offered to allies. The Council realized they had lost not just humanity, but something more important, the monopoly on galactic civilization. In the Council chamber, a new human representative stood to address the assembly. Her name was Unisong. She was young, barely 30 years old, but she spoke with quiet confidence. "I am here only to deliver a message from the human commonwealth," she said. "We bear no ill will toward the species of this council. We hold no grudges. We seek no revenge. But we will not return to council membership. We will not submit to council authority. We will not accept council interference in human affairs." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. "You had 3 years to see us as equals. You chose to see us as problems. You chose to limit us, to control us, to dismiss us. We gave you every opportunity to correct that mistake. We followed your rules. We accepted your decisions. We tried to work within your system." Her voice hardened slightly. "And in return, our people were kidnapped. Our colonies were raided. Our complaints were mocked. When we asked for justice, we were told to learn our place." She paused, letting the words sink in. "So we learned. We learned that in this galaxy, peace is not given freely. It must be earned."